Welcome back to Thinking Critical. It's time for the Comics Aficionados, the best damn comic book podcast and YouTube program that you're ever going to find on the interwebs. Got a great panel, a plus-size panel today. We got an extra member here. Eric, you enjoyed us, but you got frozen in?
Yeah, I can't get my car out when the plow comes through and just builds a wall of snow and ice on my side of the street. I'm not sure I could have dug out of that when I was young. I had to take an Uber to the grocery store yesterday.
You had to take an Uber to get some bread?
Bread and milk.
Very nice.
Okay.
So we've got
Cokes.
There you go. We got an extra member on the panel. It should be fun today. Who else we got? We got Gervais. You still unwilling to show off the haircut?
That's right. Until this fade, until this hairline gets right. I ain't doing it, but I'm glad to be part of this all-star panel. I see we have some select members here today who's going to help out with this part of this all-star CSI team to figure out what the hell is going on over at DC Comics. But I'm glad to be on today.
Are you frozen in Chicago? Are they frozen even there too?
Oh, it's frozen, but I'm with Breen, yo. I'm about to sabotage these plows because they put up one more of these walls of snow. I'm done. I'm never leaving my house again. 3 times, son, I had to dig out.
I remember being in Alaska. That was always an issue. Every once in a while, it's like, where'd my car go? Then you realize they just plowed snow on top of it. I can't see
man. It's like, do that joint when we go to work. Not before we go to work.
Absolutely. Who else we got? We got Joe Corallo, award-winning comic book editor, writer. How you doing, Joe?
I am all right, Wes and panel. How are you?
What the hell happened to your audio? You sounded like you were in like a cave or something earlier.
For some reason, since I updated the operating system on this thing, it's gotten a little wonky with some of that stuff. I don't know why. It's like I'm not changing the defaults, but then it's changing.
I'm with you. I had that same issue. But yeah, I'm glad you're able to fix that. Who else we got? We got Drew from Comics Elite, all the way from Indianapolis, Indiana. Are you stuck? Are you frozen?
I dug my car out yesterday. I got out yesterday, thankfully. But I typically go to the gym in the morning. This morning, I just said no. I'm going to hibernate for an hour and a half or so.
Man, you guys are lucky. It is so hot here. I can't get by without a fan. It's just really, really warm here in the Philippines.
I would switch places in a heartbeat right now.
Well, Joe's in what are you, New York? You're probably not even cold there.
Yeah, I mean it's cold, but like I don't care. It's whatever.
Yeah,
it's warm where I am right now in this room.
Absolutely. Josh, you also had some ice storms, even in Texas?
Yeah, it came down to us as well. Not as bad. I didn't have to dig anything out, so we are still below freezing technically, but no snow.
When I lived in Texas, they shut down the state for a week.
Yeah, typically. So we don't have the. Everyone laughs, but in Texas, you don't have the means to clear roads. You know, we don't have the place to store.
You have no
like
plows, no salt.
We don't have plows. So, you know, when it snows, you can't do anything. And we don't have snow tires readily available here either. So if we get ice or snow, we're just kind of like, well, I guess we're just going to chill for a little bit, except for the rednecks. You'll get the rednecks that are like, oh, yeah, man, let's strap on like a tube to the back of my truck and go through the woods.
Yeah. Sounds like fun. Jaster playing nines in Austin. I never would have thought you for like some smarmy foodie. Very interesting. Who else? We've also got the co-host of the Comics Aficionados. We got Doc. How you doing, Doc?
I'm here, and it's Saturday, and I'm going to laugh at DC Comics, so I'm great.
We'll see. Maybe you'll be excited about DC Comics. Who knows?
No, it's just going to be me gloating about being right a year ago. So,
all right. Well, we've got a couple of super chats we'll hit before we get into the conversation. We got Lane Kramer. Dude, Breen, where's my Good Legion comics?
Ask Joe.
That's true. Between me and Gervain, I think we can steer you right. So,
yeah, you're right about that.
Start throwing those into the comments or something. We've also got Callum Lyle. I agree that Warren Ellis is disgusting, but those women said yes. but these Karens seem like another Me Too get rich scheme. Am I wrong to assume it? Josh and I already talked about it. All right, Doc, get in there, buddy.
No, I mean, look, hey, if Warren Ellis is a creep, then the people, the ladies that decided to engage in a transactional relationship with him are, well, let's just say it rhymes with horse. Sorry, that's how it works. When one person is trading favors for favorable treatment, that's literally the definition. So yeah, so if Warren Ellis is a creep, they are ladies of the night, and I really don't care. Do I want that? No. Do I respect people that do that? No. But it's the same reason why, did he threaten that you're not going to get work anywhere, or that he would somehow work to prevent you from working? No. In which case, I don't give a shit. That's not blackmail. There is literally nothing wrong with this. It is two consenting adults engaging in a transactional relationship. Do I find it pathetic? Yes. Do I find it wrong? No. Do I respect people that do it? Not really. But again, if he's a problem, so is every woman that tried to use him to get gains. I mean, the only reason that I gave a shit about Harvey Weinstein was once he started threatening people's careers. Up until then, I have no problem with the casting couch. If that's the way you guys, no, if that's the way you guys want to work it, I don't care. The women and the men both know what the fuck they're getting into when they walk in that door. I don't.
All right,
care.
Doc, you could have just said it takes two to tango. Come on, man.
I was gonna say, they're grown behind people.
Yeah, they're grown ass adults choosing to engage in a transactional relationship.
All right.
He hypnotized them, Doc. He hypnotized some of them.
Yeah. He hypnotized them through the internet. Sure.
We already made a video on that. People are here to talk about these DC comic sales, and they do not look pretty. Actually, they paint a pretty bleak picture. Let's go to the Comic Pro first. What do you think, Joe? Are people overreacting to the top 50 comic sales, where basically DC has only 12 entries, 11 of them are Batman, and the only one sneaking in there is barely in the top 50?
It's less overreacting, and people are taking some takeaways from it that are there, but there's some things that aren't there. There's a lot of other problems baked into. I don't like, in terms of like Marvel as well. It's not a good sign that Jason Aaron's Avengers is at number 50. When, based on marketing and things like that, you would think from the way people talk, I don't know if you get better marketing and brand recognition than like the second highest grossing film in the history of the universe. But here we are, you do that, and then a couple or so years later, you're number 50 on the charts when you're leading up to yet another event after countless events. But when it comes to DC, it's interesting, some of these takeaways, because like for example with Tom Taylor, if I was Tom Taylor, what I would do is I would say, hey, I wrote over a third of the top selling DC books, and he can say that, or the top selling books on the chart, because one of them was the Marvel Dark Ages, but he wrote 4 of those books in that top 50. I think some people are acting, and 2 of them are in the top 20. I think some people are trying to use this as an indictment against Tom Taylor, but it's only because of the harping, and he's part of that too, on Superman, Son of Kal-El. If he took a step back from that and focused on some other things, I mean, his Nightwing run, love it or hate it, is selling better than Nightwing historically tends to sell. Nightwing usually doesn't hit 33 on a sales chart.
No,
like
we went
that.
back and looked at the last 4 years of top 50, and you didn't see Nightwing in there. You saw him in there this year. That was an anomaly.
Yeah, absolutely. And so he should be thrilled with that. And I feel like the harping on Superman, Son of Kal-El, which again is part of what he is doing himself is sort of diminishing that needlessly. But I mean, when you look at it too, again, some of the stark things here, Silver Surfer Rebirth, #1, outsold every single DC book except Batman.
With typo.
That's crazy. You know, but and all the people, you know, especially like last month when they were like, oh, well, some of these are Batman, but Batman's in it, or you're not being fair. 7 of the 11 DC titles have the word Batman or words Detective Comics in the title.
Dark Knights and Dark Knight of Steel.
Yeah, but I mean, even if we were just doing Batman, and you know, it's just like, no, that's the words are literally baked into the title, and then one of them's a Joker book and one of them's a Nightwing book. I mean, there's no denying that. But I think it's also important to put things in context. You go back to before Hush came out in 2002. DC sales were abysmal. Batman was under 50K copies moved a month.
Mm-hmm.
Green Arrow from DC was selling over 10,000 more copies than Batman every month. Like the Superman titles before Hush, and I mean, even during Hush, were under 40K a month.
Yeah, they were actually
across the board.
That was the era where they were talking about switching, because, you know, Comicron's always done it's based on the Batman index. They get Batman's numbers and they figure out based on percentage versus what Batman sells. That's how they figure out their sales for all the other books. They were actually.
I thought it was Justice League and Avengers.
No, it was Batman. Batman's been the index book since the 80s.
Since 1989.
Yeah.
Easy.
And they actually contemplated making X-Men the index book because of Batman's poor sales.
Yeah. So I do think it's important that, like, while we're talking about this, and while this is not good, there's no version where it's like, oh, well, this is great, actually. Just look at this. It doesn't mean it's beyond repair, but major things have to happen.
And so we do need to have a couple of super chats will hit, and then we'll get back to this. We got Roddy Boy Comics right here in the PI. Hello, Wes and the Aficionados. I'm kind of sad today. It seems DC would want me to drop some of the titles that I'm collecting. Well, I don't want you to be sad. If you're enjoying your DC titles, you might as well keep on them. Hopefully they're not getting too expensive or anything, but don't let the panel get you, Dad. If you're enjoying your books, definitely keep reading them. We got Federico de la Casa from the Europe. Hi, what's important is that in 100 years we will remember Warren Ellis's work, and that this crap will remain a side note for historians. This era will pass.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Warren Ellis will have more things that are remembered in the annals of comic history than any single one of his detractors combined. Like every single one of them combined.
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you very much, Federico de la Casa. I don't know. So, Breen, you're new to the panel. You don't normally show up here for the aficionados. What is your take on all these Batman sales discussions?
Well, DC not being well represented at the top of the charts is nothing new. When you go back 30 years, early 90s, when there were months when Batman, maybe Detective, and Justice League would be the only 3 in the top 50, and they'd have to look up at every, Image book, every just some like Dark Hawks and things like that. And this was when they were, when they weren't overloaded with Bat books. They actually had characters across the board that couldn't compete. Now their output is like 60% Batman, and they're still getting crushed in sales. So if you're DC, you're going, every way you try, the results end up being the same.
Well, no, because 2018, we looked at the top 50. They have, I believe 21 books in there, and a ton of them. There's 4 Superman books in there. There's 2 Wonder Women. There's Justice League. There's Flash in there. There's a ton of non-Batman, and they have a lot of representation specifically for the top 10 comic books.
That was my next point, was going to be, except with the exceptions of when they start new initiatives that actually take hold with fans. But whether it's self-sabotage or just time, eventually Marvel ends up overtaking them and leaving them in the dust again. And DC, to me, DC should have always been that company. They should have always thought of themselves as Avis, because they're never going to be able to overtake Marvel full time. They should have concentrated on doing the best work they could and reaching the most people, and be satisfied with the fact that as long as they have Batman, yes, but Marvel has Spider-Man and Wolverine. So there's always going to be that disadvantage. But I don't think all bad all the time is the answer. I think that's being proven. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm not sure that there is an answer other than to just put the best stuff out there and try to promote it better to where more people can find it.
Should they possibly consider just rechanging their name back to just Detective Comics?
Perhaps. So, Drew, as a comic book retailer, one of the things I've noticed, one of the big driving points of this, and I put it in my video where the average price of the DC comics in the top 50 have rose substantially, almost 50% just versus 4 years ago, that the price on the premium Batbook titles have driven out a lot of the other DC titles. People, you only have so much money on your DC budget. They're choosing to go for the higher end Batman books, and a lot of the other characters have been driven out. But we also know that they only really put their big name writers on the Batman books. And most of the writers that they have on the other books, other than an exception here or there, are kind of no name, new to the industry, lower tier imports from Marvel or whatnot. I do think them, going for some of the cheaper talent and placing them on these other books, like The Flash is good right now, but nobody knows who Jeremy Adams is, and they're not really promoting it. I think the lack of star power and recognizable names on these titles is also hurting.
Yes, that is absolutely true. When you ask Ernie, who runs our store, brick and mortar store, he'll tell you that no one really cares about anything except for Batman. That's really the only thing that's selling for him. It's gotten to the point now where he's getting 2, maybe 3 copies of any other DC book that comes out, and he'll buy a huge stack of Batman because that's what people want. But yeah, the lack of star power isn't helping. The cost is not helping at all either. But I really want to see the PR department at DC try to spin this into a good thing. That's what I want to see. I want to see this. I want to see the spin on this.
Oh, well,
it's going to happen.
Look, all you have to do is look at. They're just copying Marvel from 7 years ago. That's it. Everything they're doing is a photo. They are 7 years delayed. So whatever Marvel's press releases were in 2015, 2016, 2017, that they are just going to repurpose the exact same press releases and make the exact same excuses.
Yeah, and not just that, Doc, but you just brought up another point I was going to make, is that all the gains they had made have all been lost. They've all been regressed to pre-Rebirth.
Yeah.
To 2018. It's just now they got to gain back so much ground that they lost that I hope they can do it, but they got to get that star power back.
Well, two years ago, we were all sitting here saying all DC has to do is not fuck up. Just keep going on the same path they're going on. Just don't fuck up. Don't rock the boat. Just keep going on the same path you're going. Right now, you will be. Marvel is shooting itself in the dick on a daily basis. Just don't make those same mistakes. Don't change anything. Do the same shit. Keep the same creators. Keep the same, trajectory for your storylines. Keep the same fucking books, and you're gonna end up at or right near the top. I mean, I don't know if you'll ever totally WCW, WWE, the Monday Night War dominate kind of thing, but you will be right there neck and neck. It won't be it'll be 1A, 1B, not 1A, 2.
Well, and I remember it seems like in early 2000s, for what I remember, Marvel and DC were like that. They were neck and neck. I mean, you had Bendis at Marvel, you had Jeff Johns at DC. I mean, we knew everyone had their favorite writers and artists, in either publisher. But I hope we can get back to those days. I miss those days.
Yeah, but to Doc's point, 7 years after Bendis had written his last book, good book, DC hired him.
Yeah. Yes. So they're making all of the same mistakes that Marvel did just 7 years later. I said this a year ago. It was they were about, whenever they started with the 5G thing that never happened, and whenever they decided to do Future State, which was just repurposed 5G, I said, look, they're making the exact same mistakes that Marvel did at Marvel Now in 2012, 2013, 2014. They're making the exact same fucking mistakes. And what did they do? They made the exact same fucking mistakes. And then they even brought in the same creators that failed doing it at Marvel to do the same shit here.
All right, so we do have a couple of super chats. We got Cal Mile once again. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. No matter how much people scream or DM the evidence at the Hermit Nero, that is Jim Lee, he's not gonna do anything or even respond. I would say that's correct. That's kind of like his
Jim Lee is semi-retired.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, he's just hanging out backstage at concerts and drawing. That's pretty much what he's
We've
doing.
got Roddy Boy Comics once again. Let's start hitting that like button. We're at 240 watching. It's a 255 right now live. So definitely, if you can, hit the thumbs up, support the channel. Let everyone know we're having a good conversation here about comic books. I really appreciate that. Now, Josh, one of the things that I'm knowing that I'm seeing when I see the numbers, and that as a distinct advantage for Marvel, I think, is the success of the MCU and the interest in the characters coming to like Disney Plus, to where there is a bit of a fallback to where when a new show's going to go out, that's going to generate some interest. You don't even like Jed McKay's not a big name writer. Moon Knight's in the top 10, top 15 right now, because I think people are genuinely interested in the character and it's really good. I think that part helps out. And then the other thing that I think Marvel are doing is, Donny Cates is their hottest writer. He's not on Spider-Man. He's not on Avengers. He's not on X-Men. He's doing Thor. He's doing Hulk. He was doing Venom before. And it's kind of, boosting the sales and the notoriety of some of these lesser titles to kind of keep them up there and boost them.
So a couple of things there. You're definitely seeing some influence from the MCU because you're getting some general moviegoers or TV show watchers that aren't familiar with comics, and they're come in small numbers but asking questions. You're getting the speculator market buzz of like, oh, this Moon Knight show is going to come out. Let me pick up number one. It could be worth something. And then they might actually be reading it and going, oh, hey, this is pretty damn good. And they keep picking up issues. So I'm sure you're seeing some minor bumps from that. At the same time, it's just marketing. Like if you've got a lot of buzz about a character, whether it's a movie or TV show, you're getting marketing out there, and you're not seeing that from DC. You're not seeing marketing for the comics. Most of the word of mouth that you're hearing about, especially the TV shows, is not positive. The movies are questionable and divided, and that's going to create a difference. It's going to create a difference in mindset. How much, that remains to be seen. But yeah, I think it's definitely making an impact. I think what these numbers are really showing us, and we should note that these numbers are estimates based on a trend that we see from select comic book stores. But it's still a story worth telling, because there is, even if it's not 100% accurate, there's some accuracy here with a trend. Like most of the data we pull is a trend. And when we can't get accurate numbers, we have to look at something. But what we're seeing here is the thing that we've been griping about for 2 years for sure, and even some things that go beyond that writers or creators or the publishers were saying, no, you guys are wrong. You're just angry. You're just this or that. I mean, I think we're seeing that the things that we've complained about have some weight and have some merit. Like comic sales are dropping. And I know we've discussed that DC didn't compete in the past, but we also have to look at, since the New 52, DC has competed with Marvel pretty strongly until now. So as a company, they can say whatever they want to say. They can blame readers. They can say that we're bigots. I mean, clearly you got two people on here that, three people on here that fall in some type of minority group or something. It's because I can't see Jermaine, man. He's got that
man. It's everybody. No, y'all clear that up for us. If you single, you out.
Oh yeah.
I mean, if you're straight, you're out. It's like that's the whole damn market.
I mean, it's just You know, as a company, you can only look and blame other people for your loss for so long. And you know, I think a lot of readers right now are kind of like we've been saying this, like this isn't news.
All right, Gervain. So you're the man that's been holding the line at $3.99. But if you want to do that, if you want to read DC Comics, you can read 2 of their best-selling comic books. Otherwise, you have to drop down on the tier to get in there. Obviously, it's an issue for you. How big of an issue do you think this has been? The extreme rise in prices, especially for the higher, more important tier DC characters.
I've been saying it for a while now. Look, I mean, and Drew can either back me up or tell me I'm full of crap. It's like the direct market is basically going to become, in every sense of the word, a luxury market. That's where this is going. It's like when you're going $5 and up, it's like, and as I said before, for the first time in the comic book history, at least in my time in dealing with it, DC, and or Marvel, in terms of some of their books, went up $1 more than the indies did. That was the if that wasn't the bell ringing, the toll ringing for me, I don't know what to tell anybody. It was traditionally always independent comics were basically about $1 more than the mainstream guys. The mainstream guys went $1 more first. If that wasn't an indication of what was going on here, I don't know what to tell anybody. But I will say 8 things, and I think this is what gives some hope for the industry: 7 Swords, Basilisk, Mighty Morphin, Power Rangers. What's the future? Something is killing the children. Boom. You have options, people. You don't have to do this. You don't have to go down this path anymore. You do not have to do this. There is other quality books out there from other quality publishers. There is no reason to do this. Now, DC has been the house that Batman built since probably about 1989. That's what we used to call it when we were back at Milestone. This is just prophecy fulfilled now. But it's like there is no way that the trend for this industry is anything but becoming as niche as it possibly can be. And we're talking about comic book publishing now. In terms of character brands, DC and Marvel are just fine. There's no need to cry for Argentina on that front. But in terms of comic book publishing, this joint is about to get as niche as hell. Period.
Absolutely. We got Ryan Wilson. When's the last time we saw Breed? Oh, a year ago? Was it last year, Breed? 2020?
No, it was Christmas Day.
Yeah, that would be 2020. Oh no, that'd be 2021.
Man, you
I'm here every week, you senile.
Oh, my bad. We got a few super chats before I forget about him, because I haven't seen old son of a. We got Chris DeBliss also from right here in the PI. Nice to see Chris. I believe he's also a comic book colorist. I might be wrong on that one. Postmodernist storytelling, decompressed books, price hikes is killing DC. Woke and trashing fans are basically the time bomb cherry on top. It's definitely a lot of factors, Joe, I think that are kind of digging into all this, where people are choosing to walk away.
No, I don't know. There's this like Venn diagram, and there's some overlap with some of it, but with like the woke stuff, it's like you could argue that this Nightwing run is the most woke Nightwing run maybe ever, and it's selling more than the average Nightwing run. So you look at stuff like that, but yeah, it depends on what the issues are. It depends on the writing. It depends on how it's being handled. It depends on the artist on the book. I mean, the art on Nightwing for the most part has been pretty great. So there are a lot of factors with that. I think the decompressed storytelling and really dragging it out tends to hurt more, just in terms of the constant bombardment of limited series and overlapping. I was talking with Josh about this last night. It's like we were like, so wait, Batman 1 Dark Knight is coming out at the same time as Batman the Knight, and that's the Chip Zdarsky one, or that's the Jock one, and it's like that's like there's so much confusion just in that alone. I mean, you can make all these arguments about sales and things affecting it that are like, before you even open the book and find out what it's about, there's so many barriers. So there's confusion. There's the high price points. I mean, Wes, I know you mentioned the whole bit with like, as soon as DC found out, like, we could just like do a cardstock cover on everything as like a variant that's $1 more. Let's just do that.
Third is, but yeah,
like that.
Yeah, nobody's wrong.
Yeah,
and nobody.
Unfortunately, but and then even building on that, I mean, God, the amount of times it's like the prices on everything, and then the prestige sizing, and then sometimes they do like the magazine size stuff with Black Label, and it's like there are X amount of people that buy comics that if it doesn't fit in a long or short box, they aren't buying it. Like there's just all these like little things to it that they're creating these problems with, and you know, I've talked to a bunch of you know, local retailers and some out of state as well, and I mean, exactly to the point of, you know, what Drew was saying, there's so many stores are like, it could be Batman, the blank pages issue, where there's literally
Invisible
nothing
Batman.
printed inside.
Which they did
And
do. They
will-
did that a couple years ago.
Yeah. And
Thank you.
And, you know, there's one store out here on Long Island. I talked to the owner there, and he's like, bare minimum, it doesn't matter how bad that Batman book is. He will move 15 copies, no problem. Like, he doesn't have to push it. He can order a minimum of 15 and they will move. And, you know, then we talked about comparing it to some of the other stuff like Superman versus Lobo. You know, he was kind of like, oh, you know, like, I'm not going to order heavy, but I'll order, you know, a decent amount because it's like, Superman, Lobo, people like Lobo, limited series, whatever. 3 copies moved. Was it.
And to your point, Joe, I mean, you because of that size, we have short boxes filled with the DC Black Label books. You know, not just the Superman versus Lobo, but the other ones. No one wants that size. People hate that size. They don't want to put them in those short boxes.
No, that's a size for maybe like a book market book, something that like if you want to do like an oversized hardcover or something, that's one thing. But for people that are picking up floppies, they want floppies that are going to fit in their boxes.
Speaking of that, if you're going to do the first appearance of the Batwang, you can do the Prestige Plus format. People are going to come for it.
If you're going to do the first appearance of the Batwang, it has to be hard.
It also has to be oversized to drive the point home.
It needs to be hard and oversized. It cannot be floppy and not fit in the box.
All right, Doc. Simmer down, Doc. We got 32 flavors of Nick Weiser. Nice show so far, dudes. Well, thank you very much. We got a great audience. We got a great panel here. Got a lot of lively comic book discussion going on. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. We got Common Sense. DC fixed Wally. Do you think no one reading Jeremy Adams' Flash because people can't get over the damage that Tom King has done? That is absolutely one of the reasons, Josh, that they can't sell Flash anymore. I think people are still shell-shocked with what Tom King did in Heroes in Crisis, and then the Future State Flash book didn't help him at all.
No,
that was bad.
Ever since I've started working in comics and writing about comics, I've had this ongoing discussion about how you need to be careful about damaging a brand. And I will use Ann Nocenti's Catwoman as an example. Like, Catwoman's never been the biggest character, but she started her run and it was god awful. And the numbers dropped so bad that they had creator after creator after creator come onto that book trying to do something to save the character, and nothing happened. And Catwoman did not spark any interest at all until Ram V got on. And there were actually good stories prior to this. But it took 10 years for people to be like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. And it took someone who's kind of had this like budding, bubbling under the radar name of like, oh, this could be like one of the big ones in the future to help do that. So yeah, Tom King coming in and doing this with, well, I mean, let's look. Everything that's pretty much happened to Wally except for Rebirth since the New 52 has ruined that character. And it's going to take a good while to fix it.
And I'd like to piggyback on what John said, because that's the same thing with Legion. It's like Legion of Superheroes used to be my jam, but they destroyed that brand. You don't even know what that book is supposed to represent or be about anymore. Doesn't matter who they bring on that book now. It's like, unless it's like unless I hear from somebody else, there is no way on God's green earth am I ever going to pick up another Legion of Superheroes book again. Ever. Not going to happen. Yeah. Keep those rings coming, but I'm not picking up them books. It's like, no.
Yeah.
I remember Bendis did his preview book for the Legion a couple years ago, and it was like, so wait, Crimson Fox is the focus now of the Legion? What's going on here? I don't remember her being on the Legion, but whatever.
Yeah, that was a mistake. We got Federico De La Casa. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. I'm just thinking, is it possible that Marvel and DC Doom Directions is wanted to fail for unknown to us reasons, or they just done? Does anyone think that they're trying to fail? I don't think they. Why would you try to lose money in customers?
I think that they have this mentality that they're too big to fail. I think they think that their characters and their brand is too big to ever fail. And I think kind of having these bigger studio backings behind these companies only help that mentality. Yeah. And I think that, we've blown so much shit up these people's asses that are in the company that they think they're hot stuff and they think they're top tier and they think they're the best that's out there, and they're not. So I think those two combinations have created this attitude of like, whatever, we're great. We can do what we want. Oh, you don't have taste. It's a bad place to be. I mean, a man falls before his pride. So.
Yeah. You can't be the best in the business when I've got Joe Corallo on the channel right now. You're not the best.
Here's what we'll do. I'll go be the GM of DC Comics. We'll make Joe editor-in-chief, and I swear to God, you're going to get more quality books than what you're getting right now.
You get some good Legion, I'll tell you that.
That's for damn sure. But to build on what you're saying, I mean, a lot of this is people being in a bubble. I forget which video of Purchase he mentioned this because he puts out way too many videos, but there was one where he mentioned that inside Marvel, when they were doing the J.J. Abrams and Son Spider-Man, they had incredibly high projections that they utterly failed to meet, and they were genuinely baffled within Marvel. They didn't understand why people weren't coming out in droves outside of the direct market to purchase the Spider-Man book. And it's like any idiot on the street could have told you, why would I buy a J.J. Abrams Spider-Man book in like 2019? Like, what are you talking about? Like, so there's a lot of that. When you get insular and then you create sort of your own echo chamber because you have this group that's all working on these ideas, and people that are outside that group are just, haters or naysayers and stuff like that. And they know what they're doing because, I mean, you see that attitude all the time of like, well, I'm the guy with the job, so of course I know what I'm doing. And so that's what sets a lot of these things up. And people also don't know the numbers either on these books. Like, I mean, another thing that also came up was apparently there were people within Marvel, or at least one person in particular, who was really disappointed with the sales on Silver Surfer Rebirth #1 and like expressed that to Ron. And it's like, what are you talking about? There is no reason a Ron Mars, Ron Lim, and I love that run at the time, way back what should be in the top 20 of
30
sales.
years after the fact. Like,
yeah, there is zero reason for that. That's the kind of thing, like a #1, you think maybe it breaks the top 50 barely, and then by issue 2 it's barely in the top 100. Like, that's the kind of thing you think with a lot of those like nostalgia kind of like come back for a few issues to continue telling the story. It did way beyond I would think anyone's expectations, but within the company there were people who were like, that should have sold better. It's like, so there's 50. There's just a giant disconnect. And I mean, even on the retailer level, and I'd love to hear what Drew has to say about this as well. Like I talked to multiple people who were like, you know what? I ordered a little heavy on Saga 55 because, you know, there's no second printings. And now I'm stuck with extra Saga 55s because they genuinely thought that, you know, like, oh, 3.5 years, people were going to be excited and pick up the floppies. But so many people moved to trade waiting or moved on from the series that they were genuinely shocked that people didn't come in to make sure they got their copy.
Yeah, I think Ernie ordered about 40 copies and he sold probably 15 or 20 of them. Yeah, so we're sitting on another 20 copies of them just sitting there on the shelf.
Yeah. Well, if it gets good again, you'll probably get that eventually. But yeah, you can't leave people in a lurch, especially because they did say they would be gone for 12 to 18 months. It ended up being far longer than that by the time they came back. We got Callum Lyle here, says Tom King yells mommy when he comes. That's an opinion. Wolstein 3D, our local comic shop reader average age went up 16 years the past 20 years. How is this model supposed to work in 50 years if kids never get into comics? Well, kids can't get into comics right now. Drew, you probably know this is better than I do. They're too expensive.
Oh man,
they're expensive. You know, there are comics for kids out there. It's just trying to find them. You know, just telling them the kids where to go, where to start. But I really hate seeing that. I really hate that. You know, because I remember being a kid in first grade and loving comics. You know, I really wish it was.
My kid's reading Dogman right now. I can get the hardcover for $10.
It's not the same.
Yeah, it's just it's a comic book. Same to him.
This is something that actually. No, go ahead.
Go ahead, Doc. No. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say this connects back to what Joe was just talking about, like Silver Surfer Rebirth. You know, the average age has gone up significantly. Silver Surfer Rebirth didn't fail because it wasn't good. It failed because the people that it appealed to left reading comics 20 years ago because comics suck.
It didn't fail. It was a huge success.
It was, but it was. I'm not saying failed. I'm talking about the numbers that they thought it would get. You're trying to sell to people that aren't reading anymore.
That's a good point. You mentioned Silver Surfer Rebirth. That would have reached more people if the people that were waiting for books like that to come back and waiting. A lot of them got tired of waiting. It just went away.
We've got Doc here. He says most creators of mainstream comics today. I'm sorry, Josh. You are just a little bit behind with your audio. I did not mean to cut you off. What did you have to say?
Oh, I was just going to say we're seeing like the opposite end of the spectrum too. And I was going to comment on what Drew was saying for kids' books. You know, there are kids superhero books that are targeted for that audience. The problem with that is those characters and the way they were represented. When kids grab a regular comic book, they don't recognize the actual characters. So we've got a twofold problem here. We've pushed older audiences out, and we've made comics unrecognizable for younger audiences. So you're kind of compressing your market.
We usually give out the True Believers, the $1 comics from like the 80s and 90s. We give those to the kids to read. A lot. That's
what I did. But it was our Christmas thing for the kids at the school. I took down the True Believers, and they loved them. And they wanted more. I was like, I'm out. I only had so many. But they
can go to your local comic store and pay $20 for them.
Which is ridiculous. Second prints on True Believers. Who would have thought?
$20.
That's insane. We've got the Doc. Most creators of mainstream comics today have a massively unearned sense of self-worth because they've been filleted by the industry for a decade. All right, Joe, defend yourself.
Doc's onto something with that. I'd really have to sit down and research some of this a bit more and get like some dates lined up. But there was a point where creators like it really became writer dominant, and certainly in the late 2000s into the 2010s, you would see creators, and I'm not trying to make it personal or anything for any of the people I'm naming, but you would see names like Matt Fraction, Kelly Sue DeConnick, Brian K. Vaughan with Saga, things like that. And there was this like cult of personality that really built up. And I mean, this also goes back to the Warren Ellis forums where everyone on there was filleting each other and all of that. Some of them literally. But when you go back and see, like, there was all of this like hype and expectation, and I mention those names because they then left comics for a few years, came back, and no one cared. Yeah. And like there's this sea change that's been going on in comics where it just sort of turned into, okay, well, what have you done for me lately? Or, oh, we're kind of over like the cult of personality of the writer and we're moving on to other things. And it's taking a while for the industry at large to catch up to that. And I think that's also one of the problems going on right now.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
I think my point here on this one was more that the industry tried to convince itself that all of the writers, all right, you had that huge influx in the early 2000s of the Morrisons, the Millers, the Bendises, Brubakers, and then you had that next wave of the Vaughns, Fractions, Hickman, and everything else. And then after that, there really wasn't one. There wasn't another wave. And the industry tried to convince itself that those guys, all the ones that nobody can fucking remember, that followed the Vaughns and Hickmans and even Fraction, were just as good. They're not. They're nowhere fucking close.
No.
And honestly, even those guys weren't as good as the Bendises at the time, Brubaker, Miller, and Morrison. And none of them, but those guys were almost as good as the Gaimans, the Moores that came out in the early 2000s. I'm sorry. Kieran Gillen isn't anywhere on the same fucking planet as Morrison or Miller. Not even close. Yet we're expected as readers, and the industry itself tries to convince itself that people like Kieran Gillen can sell fucking comics the way Chris Claremont or Alan Moore did. No, it's never going to fucking happen. They're not as good.
All right. Well, we got a topic out here. It says Dan Didio said he was working 2 years in and out in his role, talking about he was planning 2 years out from the date that he was working. How much of the current stink does Yavins wear, and when do we expect a turnaround? He's been gone for 2 years now. It's their problem. It's her and Jim Lee. Obviously, they had a general manager, and they've had a turnover in that. It is their problem. When can you expect a turnaround? I think they would have to admit that they've made a mistake first.
Yeah.
And then maybe 2 years after that, or at least 9 months, because the production cycle is not fast. What do you think, Jermaine? How long do you think they could realistically turn around DC Comics if they acknowledge any of their issues?
I don't think they have to. Honestly, I don't think Marie Javins is catching any of the stink of this. I don't think. I think she could fly low under the radar and avoid this altogether.
To get the product better, you need the EIC to improve it, to push something better, right?
I'm going to go back to I'm just going to go back to Federico's point, because I think he made a very good point about the unknowns of this. Like, honestly, there are probably some things going on at DC and both at Marvel that we have no idea what's driving this, because from the outside looking in, none of this makes sense. Like, absolutely none of it. And I'm just going to use the whole distribution thing, because when we were talking about DC during the Great Disaster, we were talking about DC making some of these moves. It looked like they were actually thinking about things and had a plan. But now all you did was you went from basically having a bunch of distributors that we thought, okay, there'd finally be some competition, to now each one has their own respective distributor. And we all remember what happened the last time that one happened. And so, honestly, I don't know if they can turn DC around at this point. And if they do it, I'm certainly not going to attribute it to somebody actually having a plan and being strategic about it. They'll just have lucked out, because the thing is, they're selling Batman like apparently like hotcakes. that means on some level they at least have their finger on the pulse of whatever that fan or that consumer is now. But this just feels like there's something else driving this other than selling comics, and I don't know what that is. But they seem to be working out this model where they're selling some over here and selling some over there and selling some to somebody over there, and in the aggregate, hey guys, our comeback is greater than our setback. And that's what seems to be going on, because there's some, you've done videos with some retailers that say, I ain't even selling DC Comics no more. And they seem to be perfectly fine doing that. So I don't know I don't know if they can turn this around. I'm very pessimistic on where this is going. So I don't expect a turnaround. I don't.
We got Uberman. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. That Jar Jar Abrams Spider-Man comic was the worst example of nepotism, a hack teaching the next generation of hackery. Man, Drew, that comic book sucks so much ass, man. That was really bad.
I remember the bigger buzz about it was before it came out, the tease that it could have been like the fourth Spider-Man film in comic. Everyone was like, "Oh my god, they're finally doing it!" And it's like, "Oh, it's J.J. Abrams comic."
Yeah. This kid gets to create a new villain his first time out. Man, that comic sucked.
Yeah.
We got K Manifesto. Things have deteriorated so much at DC. I feel like I'm giving to charity with each purchase. Josh, that's a problem, isn't it? You there, Josh? He said he was here. I think Josh is gone. What do you think, Breed? Do you think people are giving to charity at this point, just still supporting DC?
You know, my take on DC right now is they're like the professional baseball team that went out and spent a whole lot of money on free agents, gutted their farm system, and then didn't even get to the playoffs with it. And now, it's short-term thinking, but then a couple years later,
you're stuck with the team.
Yeah, when those free agents surpass their prime, they have nobody coming up, and you're going to have years of being at the bottom of the division. That's kind of what. Yeah, I said. There's someone put in the comments that Batman's selling well right now because there's you can't escape Batman commercials for the new movie. Well, what happens a year from now when the movies come and gone and those books aren't really that great, or most of them aren't, and then they stop selling? Then what do they do?
And Breen, to your point, I mean, some of the guys at DC had, like, comparing it to the sports team, a lot of them aren't even has-beens. A lot of them are never was. Never will be. Never will be, like Tim Sheridan. And like I don't understand how this guy is getting the work he is, considering the damage he's done, and it is mind blowing.
Well, someone mentioned Tom Taylor's writing some successful books at DC right now. I think it's because he's reaching a decent segment of the audience they've been trying to cultivate for years. Like I said, Nightwing is selling better than it has for a while, but I don't think anybody that's read both can objectively say it's better than, say, Chuck Dixon when he was writing it. And I read a Detective Comics a couple weeks ago. It was the annual. And Nightwing's character is absolutely insufferable now. I mean, he's Batgirl 50.
It was
insufferable.
That was a bad comic book.
No, I think. Yeah. No, sorry, Adrian.
That's real quick. But I think K Manifesto was on something here, because I said this when all this stuff was going on with Diamond. It's like you're giving the nonprofits at this point, okay? You're giving the not-for-profits at this point. It's like the way we were talking about Diamond when that whole thing was going down. It was like it was all but here, buy this mug for $50 and support your comic distributor. And it's like these guys are running this business. It's like you're paying $5 to $7 for something that should not cost $5 to $7. This was before the inflation hit, people. Before the inflation hit, you are giving to charities here. You are not buying comics. You are making charitable donations. Okay, that's what's going on there. So I'm all in 100% with K Manifesto on that one.
Well, at least for some of us that sell comics, we can use it as a tax write-off.
Yeah.
You know, but And also quick on Tom Taylor with Nightwing, again, like one of the weird things about it is ultimately it is very similar to a lot of other runs because so many people that tackle Nightwing go, hey, we're going to retcon his origin a bit, and by the way, he's going to fight Blockbuster. I mean, that's just what happens over and over again because no one knows what to do with these characters. But going to DC as being a charity, like, you know, if they even just stopped, you know, putting out a lot of new comics and they kept giving me gorgeous things like, you know, the Jack Kirby's Fourth World Absolute Edition that's gigantic. Like, they keep putting out books like this, I'll keep donating to that charity. They can hit me up whenever. These things are great.
So I do want to
Yeah,
say,
but that's the whole point of a charitable donation. That's the point. The point is, hey, you can buy the Absolute Edition for $200 and support your local charity. That's the whole point. But you're not selling a comic.
So we do have about 150 likes right now. We've got like 350 live viewers. So if you want to give us some support, give us a thumbs up. I really appreciate that. We've got a few more super chats I want to get through here real quick. We've got Heck from Sigma Comics. We're at the Comic Book Expo in Jersey, but still wanted to send a warm shout out to Wes and the panel for the good work you do. Keep it tuned to Thinking Critical for the real lowdown in comics. Thank you very much. And if you have a chance, go to the Comic Book Expo in Jersey and go seek out the guys at Sigma Comics. Heck's a really good guy. Do not cross him because he is a trained MMA fighter. So, you know, I hear he's a puppy dog, but you don't want to try yourself. You know what I mean? Definitely check those guys out. Thank you so much for the support. We got Chris DeBliss from right here in the PI. Wes, protect me from Tom King. He hates my kind. He hates color. Comic book artist? Comic book colorist? I don't know. Maybe. Is he doing too many black and whites? Is that what it is?
Or does he just hate
Protect
Filipinos?
yourself by not reading the comic books. Let's do it here. Thank you so much. We got Speedy running from If You Don't Like My Politics, Don't Buy My Books too. I'm really worried about the future of the industry. I remember that video. I think it was like a year. That was like a year old when it finally came up. But I can see why it happens, Joe, because you go out there and you say something so bolstered, so flamboyantly go out there and challenge people, and then when you see the results, you're like, oh, please, I hope this doesn't happen. It's best to not just talk like that.
Yeah, but it's hard for people to get that because it's a long process. It's not an overnight thing. It's years and years. And it's not just saying that. It's like, I'm not going to go on, this channel or be interviewed by this site because they said something mean about so-and-so. And I'm not going to engage with people because you said something mean about this person in this tweet thread. And it's like the constant dwindling down of who they're willing to talk to, who they're willing to engage with. And then you fast forward 5 years later and they're out there being like, why isn't anyone interacting with me?
Well,
why isn't anyone reviewing my book? Why isn't
Joe?
Mm-hmm.
Joe, here's the thing that this goes back to my point from before. It's it's a bluff. They think they're better than they are. It's a bunch of people with an unearned sense of self-righteousness and qualifications. None of them have it. They think they do because they've been told they do. It's the fucking participation trophy generation actually having to put in the work and accomplish things. They don't do it, and then they're shocked by it. They're legitimately shocked because they've been told for years now they are the future of comics. And well, the problem is they are. That future though is just in a dumpster on fire.
I hate to break it to you, Drew. I know you're a millennial too. You think you're a comic book writer. You ain't hot shit. You tell him.
I just gotta keep my ego in check.
Damn millennials. What the hell are you doing here anyway? How many millennials we got on this panel?
You tell me I have to earn my way,
Yes. I love you, Drew, but you still gotta earn it too.
What the hell? What am I
I'm
doing
just
today?
teasing. We got Federico De La Casa again. Thank you so much to everyone that supported the channel. It seems to me that since Twitter exploded, most writers have embiggened their egos like they were the new Alan Moore when Mantlo would beat them any day. Man. Mantlo's so underrated there, Joe. We talked about his Hulk run, man. That's disappointing. He writes singles on all these guys.
The thing is that
sorry.
That's okay, but the thing is, Mantlo and Moore, those guys, and it's kind of like the Wes and I like talk wrestling. They were back in a different era in a different day where they were in a market where the market was a lot larger than it is right now, and they actually could get a better idea of what the marketplace was about because they could put a book out there to more than 100,000 people on a regular basis and get a real sense of where the public tastes were and things along those lines. That's not what's going on with these guys these days. These guys, it's like if you hit over 10,000, it's like, oh my God, I've made it. I'm at Hollywood. Where's my star on the Walk of Fame? It's like there's no perspective in terms of there's no ability for them at this point to basically put something out there and get a real sense of whether or not they know what they're doing, they have any kind of product sense, much less an idea what the public taste are. So it's like guys like Moore and Mantlo and people from that era, you were playing in a much bigger marketplace where you could find out relatively quick whether you knew what you were doing or not. And in this case here, it's like basically if you can self-fund, it doesn't matter what somebody tells you. Or if DC is willing to say, look, kid, as long as you move like 20,000 copies and we get the right press release on, this website, that website, the news, you're good to go. It's two totally different. It's just a different era now. So yeah, it's pretty much a participation award. Kind of
We've got Lane Kramer chiming in. Thank you so much for supporting the channel, Lane Kramer. DC makes it hard to find new series. Joker ending for me. Wonder Girl gone. I'm having to look to Marvel. They use their plethora of characters. That is an enormous problem because Josh and I do This Week in Batman. When I'm done with it, I've essentially read half of the DC books for the week. And there's just a smattering of other characters right now. What do you think about that, Josh? You're the biggest Batman fan in the world. It's wearing on me.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this before as describing it as it feels like a chore, something that should be fun, something that we love to talk about and want to come and discuss. Like we feel like it's work and not fun work. It's a problem. I've even discussed, the amount of books coming out. Some of your comic shops are tiny and they can't actually showcase the full comic book because they're having to fan everything across. There's so many problems here. And I think that publishers, for whatever reason, are just taking the wrong information as wins, and kind of what they're trying to tout half the time is a loss.
Yep, so we've also got Comics and Finance chiming in. If you haven't checked out Comics and Finance's channel, he takes a different perspective, a different approach to comic books that I think is very interesting. Definitely go check him out if you have a chance. He says Batman has the Arkham games and a lot of multimedia success to drive fans to the brand. If DC wants to sell comics, they need to have good media. That is absolutely the case. You look at the success of the MCU. The DC universe has not had that. Batman has had it because it continuously reboots. Once it fails, they just reboot it and it starts up again. Mm-hmm. But there hasn't been a good Justice League movie yet. We haven't had a good Superman movie since the 1980s. We haven't had, we had a good Wonder Woman movie, but I don't think they had the right creator specifically. But Batman just has everything working for it that nothing else that DC really does have, in my opinion. There, Bree, what do you think? You're a big movie guy.
Well, I have seen the movies. I think it's interesting that the Marvel success comes at a time when Marvel Comics used to sell so much more than they do now, and all comics did. But I'm not sure that the success of the Marvel universe has had that great an impact on Marvel Comics sales because of a lot of self-inflicted. We always talk about when you went to see the Avengers, the one from 2014 or wherever, you went into the store looking for Iron Man and it's a 15-year-old girl. You're looking for the Hulk and it's a 15-year-old boy. You're looking for Captain America and it's Sam Wilson. I go, well, isn't he the yeah. But DC has, you're right, their movies haven't been nearly as successful as Marvel. So if you believe that comic sales are tethered to the live action properties, DC hasn't done themselves any favors.
I don't think they're tethered, but I just think it helps to elevate the profile and the awareness.
It can't hurt.
Yes.
No question, but it's
if they want to tether it to something, it needs to be animated like they do with manga and anime.
That's fair. Because I remember back 20 years ago when the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie came out, that really didn't lead to a giant jump in Spider-Man sales, if I'm not mistaken.
Neither did X-Men.
Yeah, it's now part of that is because a lot of that audience just kind of eroded through the 90s, and it's not all because of the crash. It just video games, other ways to for consumers to spend their money that's more exciting than 2D images on a printed page. But it's go ahead, Doc.
Neither Spider-Man nor X-Men, while they were very successful movies, they didn't become quite the cultural phenomenon that MCU did. And the Marvel had the opportunity, so they never got any like the real big bumps in sales from Spider-Man or the X-Men movies. Same way they didn't get it from Ghost Rider or that bad Fantastic Four. They just didn't get the bumps.
That's easily explained. If you are a comic book fan, you were thrilled to see your characters leap off the page onto the screen, and how exciting that was. Like, I never imagined we could get this. But if you put it on the other hand, and your first exposure to these characters are the live action, how much of a come down is the printed page going to be to you?
Yeah.
If your first experience is seeing them in live action. And that's the problem with thinking that the movies were going to lead to massive comic sales.
Yeah.
So definitely want to say thank you very much to Comics of Finance for supporting the channel. We got Don Rossavelli. I used to spend over $80 a week every week to satisfy my comic addiction. I've been comic book sober since 2017, and I'm not looking back. That's a problem, Doc.
It is. Hey, I've been real close to going that way. I cut my pull list down in about 2015 I was down to 5 books, maybe 6 books. It's grown again since then, but I've entirely wiped out any DC that I had, and I didn't have much before. I had maybe 1 or 2 books. But I'm even at the peak now. I'm only at maybe 10 books a month. So I'm like half that, like per month that you were spending per week. There was times when I was at $120 a month or $120 a week, had like 25 books a week on my pull list. Now that's, first of all, it's not even possible to do because the prices have gone so skyrocketed. I know, right? But no, like, look, I mean, that's if you did that, how many other people did and are just not telling us?
Yeah, Drew, what do you see at your shop? Is this happening where people are cutting down substantially or just cutting it out altogether? Drew?
Oh, sorry. I didn't hear.
You zoned me out, didn't you? I knew it. I saw it in your eyes. I was like, this dude's watching TV.
Oh.
Breakfast burrito.
Honestly, my pull list is down to about 2 books. We have customers who are down to about probably 5 or so, but still, we do have the whales. We do have our whales in there, who will buy every variant for that issue of Batman, every variant for the issue of Amazing Spider-Man. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be a Peach Momoko cover. Sorry, that's their poor decision, but it just there will be the big whales and there will be those who are trimming back. So I think we're about half and half, I would say.
All right, Philip knows what's up. Millennials, exactly. Jeez. We've also got Uberman. Batman reboots equal variant cover nowadays at movies. Yeah, we're gonna get the Batman variant covers on everything.
Oh yeah,
coming up. They've already announced it.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, it's more like just variant Batman.
Yeah,
it's a new Batman every few years.
All right, so we've talked about this one long enough. We do have several other topics to get to. We did have a big comic book over at DC, not Infinite Frontier, Justice League Incarnate number 4. Basically, they retconned every major event in Crisis. They didn't retcon it out of existence, but they retconned major details of them. Now it's been the Great Darkness has been behind all of this. It seems that they are trying to redeem Darkseid, basically turn him into, I don't know, the next Apocalypse. I'm not a big fan of that. But we also have a new Flash that came into the scene. What did you think about this, Josh? Were you a big fan of Justice League Incarnate? Are you a big fan of them changing the, some of the details of all the big Crisis events and whatnot?
Well, I mean, two things here. One, I'm sorry, y'all. Look, one, Wes, I'm gonna say the same thing that you said in your video, and it's like I don't fucking care. I don't care anymore. I don't want to read this book. I don't want to read the book that came before it. I don't want to read this Crisis event that's gonna come out. I don't fucking care because all they're gonna do is just undo it 6 months from now, and that's the problem. Like, comics have stopped creating a pull. There is not a pull here anymore to drag or want to bring readers in, because all you're going to do is freaking undo it. You took some of the biggest moments in comic book history that people like to turn to say, like, this impacted me, and you just did away with it, man. It act like it didn't matter. Like, I don't know, man.
If you talk to Marvel fans in the 90s or even in the 2000s, you could reference when the X-Men died in Dallas. Everybody knew what you were talking about. It was the end of Fall of the Mutants. When the X-Men died in Dallas, that now you can say something that was a big event that happened. It's ignored. And every other book ignored it. So what fucking difference does it make? Nothing matters.
Yeah, it impacted the status quo in a real way. And that's what, there's like the X-Men were dead. That's
and not just that. I mean, another writer is mining in the Alan Moore mine, trying to find a little nugget to use for a storyline. And I'm wondering how many other people are going to keep digging there until it's just run dry.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the problem is the mine just keeps collapsing.
It's true. One of the worst things about that Absolute Fourth World Volume 2 coming out is I was reading it, and then for this show, I was kept catching up on Justice League Incarnate, and after going through again one of the most wonderful, intricately cared for and crafted stories in the medium, to then see the bastardization of so many of these characters happening. And then, I mean, I'm reading this, and it's like, if you try to explain some of the stuff that's going on in Justice League Incarnate to someone, it's just like, oh, there's a new Flash. And it's like, oh, yeah, they already brought a new Flash in Future State, right? What is it, Jess Chambers? No. It's Avery Ho. Who?
Yep.
Yeah, that's the Flash. It's like, what the? When you have to ask someone which new Flash, and
there's multiple answers,
and one hand doesn't cut it.
Yes,
that's a problem. There's a Wonder Family now. What? It's
same with spiders, same with claw people, same with Hulks, same with
Shazam.
Iron people, same with super people, same with bat people. This is
Aqua people.
Aqua people. This is the reason why I've been saying for 3 years, stick them all in a fucking spaceship and shoot them into the sun. That way they can't bring them back.
That was Secret Wars, though, man. Come on. Now, he literally stuck him in a spaceship and shot him off into space and said, okay, hit the reset button, guys. We're going to do this again.
Well, the
this is the crisis of infinite multitudes.
I want them shot into the sun. Into the sun.
They did. They just missed.
Yeah, it's just, we are stuck in this infinite hell loop of let's create a new character who's going to take the mantle, and then we're going to kill them, and then we're going to create a new character that's going to come and take the mantle, but this other writer's coming in who liked the previous one, so we're going to bring that one back to life. And it's just this endless loop that just ends with more and more characters with the same name, and no one likes this.
And you know what? We're getting closer to I'm waiting for somebody to actually just use this and decide that they're going to take the multiplicity approach, and whenever you copy the copy, it ends up like the short kid, like the short bus kid. Like I'm waiting for that. Like,
oh man,
yeah, that's how they need to start treating these copies of copies. Yeah, like Michael Keaton.
It's multiplicity, man. There you go. Yep, me and Dockery right there. It's multiplicity, man. It's like, yo, learn the moral lesson from that story. Don't. It's like, come on. It's like, no, it's terrible. It's terrible. It's like, it's got to the point. It's like, this was stuff that creators would talk about, probably even going back to like, Jack Kirby at some point when they were even doing those like, those Marvel cartoons. The Marvel superheroes thing is that, at a certain point, once you started realizing they were exploiting these characters or moving into the medium and you're not getting a piece of it, it's like, well, why would I create a new character if I'm going to make all this money for Marvel or DC and not get a piece of it? And it just feels like that this is that kind of, sort of forward thinking, but it went in a horribly wrong direction, and it's just writ large. They're like, I'm not creating nothing new. Like, I'm surprised they even got Punchline, even though it's a watered down Harley Quinn on some level. Sorry for all the Punchline fans like that, but it's like, you're even surprised that even a Punchline would come out at this point, and the only reason the Punchline happens is because they tried Harley Quinn and it ain't really working. So it's like, let's try another female Joker and see if we can get something else going. But it's like, this is like, they have to really on a level figure out how to, first of all, they've got to get people who know what they're doing. Then they got to figure out how to incentivize them in a way to create actually new things. Because this whole thing of like the heroes, the bad guys, the heroes, the bad guys, the heroes, the bad guys, it's not working anymore. It worked for Buffy when, the big bad would every 2 years turn out to be one of them. Okay, that's different. And it's like and they stuck another big bad in between. But this thing has just gotten to the point where the dark side thing would have been cool in Justice League Incarnate if he was competing with the Great Darkness. But the fact that you're even intimating that, no, he's really the greatest hero of them all, it's like, Jesus, I can't do this anymore. No, stop. No more lethal protectors, okay? I don't need another lethal protector, but that's all.
To Joe's point, right somewhere, the 90s Clone Saga is going, how you like me now?
Yeah, right. You guys should have appreciated me while I was here.
You know what though? The fact that you had to specify the 90s Clone Saga is part of the problem.
He's not wrong.
Not the Miles Clone Saga. Yes, the 90s.
Not the Miles one. Not the one that the slot one. Not the damn slot one, not the Bendis Ultimate Spider-Man Clone Saga. No, the 90s clone. Jesus Christ.
Let me just call that the good one.
All right.
At this point, and it's kind of bad whenever the 90s Clone Saga is considered the good one.
Right.
That was
exactly
for 20 years. That was relentlessly mocked for being so overblown, and they had no fucking clue how to end it, so it just kept going. And it was mocked for that. Now it's the good one.
It's beloved.
What the shit?
Oh man! It's like, exactly at what point did we lose control here? It's like it's terrible. It's
like, when we lost control is, as Jesse Snyder said with Aaron and Wes the other day, when all the publishers started doing is just hit the again button. Did everybody did everybody see Miracle, the Disney movie about the Miracle on Ice, the one that had okay. Remember whenever they have to skate the lines after they played that really shitty game in Oslo, and Kurt Russell's just sitting there like blowing the whistle again. That is what it looks like in that fucking office.
No, but I actually think there's a bigger theory behind it, because as we're talking about, but I think this is where the video game culture is taking over. Because back in the day, we just hit the reset button. We didn't like this, reset, just start the game over again. And that's what this is like. It's just like every year, every 2 years, it feels like, and it's probably longer than that, but it's like they're constantly hitting the reset button because they don't know what they're doing. And that's how
18 months ago. When they
18 months
Perpetua was the big evil that was actually
exactly. And it's just like, are you guys? It's like, what is? Because it's not even like it's a terrible idea. This is an idea that's often found in myth, that the fact that there's always was this darkness before light came into it, and that there's an implication that darkness is sentient. But it's just like, guys, you've told that story every 18 to 24 months since '85. It feels like if it wasn't her, who was the Zero what was it? The 0 Hour. Who was behind that one?
It was
Parallax.
Yeah,
You know, who used to be, and then who used to exactly who was used to be, was it Hal Jordan or Hawk? You know, whatever. But it's like, come on, it's like enough already. Just pick a spot. We thought that was what we were going to do with Doomsday Clock, but we all know how that went. Just pick a spot and just tell some good stories. Just stop. You know,
and Josh Williamson, he's a great storyteller, and this isn't his best work at all.
No, but speaking of Hal, we have how many Bat books? We have how many Wonder Woman books? Hal Jordan isn't the star of a single ongoing DC book. Hal Jordan.
He made a cameo in Green Lantern last week.
Because here's what it comes down to. Every time you have the real Green Lantern, it shows how bad all of the poor photocopies that are out there right now running around actually are. It shines a light on the fact that they are so pathetic in comparison, and that none of them deserve a book, except for maybe John Stewart.
Well, we got a couple of super chats I want to get in here real quick. We got Wolfstein 3D. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Dear reader, here's our latest book. If it wasn't apparent we don't really care anymore, everything goes. $7, please.
How it feels.
Kind of what it feels like.
McLaren.
We got Mr. DC Comics. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. $20 is very generous. Maybe DC is not allowed to outdo Marvel because of so many people invested in making money off the MCU being successful. If DC is just as good, maybe they fear they will lose money. DC can only use Batman, Marvel, of all the heroes. I have a hard time feeling. I think that they're literally trying to not succeed. I do think one of the real problems in here is they gutted their editorial staff. They kind of got rid of all their best known creators. So the limited amount of editors that they have are probably running the ship right now. And they're kind of in a waiting pattern for this Discovery merger that they know is going to happen. So what are you going to do? Well, let's put out DC book or Batman books because we know they'll have to be successful. We can't really do anything until this is going on. Do you think I've got anything there, Joe?
No, I think so. I think a lot of things happened and sort of the dominoes fell in a way that on the outside, sure, it was kind of, easy might be a harsh way to say it, but like we're seeing a lot of things coming. But when you're in it, when you're higher ups at DC and you're just like, they just got rid of half of us and we're scrambling, we're stuck in meetings all the time. We're, I would imagine Marie Javins is in tons of meetings with, people higher up, AT&T, Warner, Discovery, and like trying to figure out, oh my God, there's no stability. What's happening? What are we going to do? And then you're having to delegate a lot of that stuff to editors who are below you. And then they're basically like, well, we're not hiring new editors. So now you're going to edit 3 times as many books as you were editing. And they're scrambling around and they're not getting back to people about future pitches. And then they check their emails. And then it's like, oh, you're with Substack now? Oh, you took that pitch to Image? Oh my God, what's going on? Like, I think that is closer to the reality. And I think that comes from a false sense of comfort. I think that comes from like, Jeff Johns and Gary Frank aren't just gonna take that project and go somewhere else. They know we'll do it. We'll get back to them when we get back to the same thing with Jock and Snyder. Like everything's going on, and it's just like, Snyder was a solid architect and understands the DC universe. So, worst comes to it, we'll tap him and we'll get him to come. You're locked up too? Oh my God. Oh, what are we going to do? Like,
it's not that they're trying to, go ahead, Joe. Yeah, finish.
No, I'm saying like that I imagine it's closer to what was going on than any efforts to like actually sabotage things.
Yeah, it's not that they're trying to fail. They just don't have to necessarily succeed. Like, it just don't. They just don't. Yeah.
Might be one of the inhibitors. So we've also got Federico De La Costa. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Forget the Clone Saga. we will see the X-Men Chuck Austin run way better than the Vita Howard Williams run. At least he had Kia Asamaya on the bench.
Yeah, I've been saying this. I've been saying this for almost a year now. Chuck, I will take Chuck fucking Austin back over anyone in that office right now. Anyone. And we had Angel and Husk fucking in midair over her mom.
Yeah.
Like
seriously.
literally doing it. Like, yeah.
And
just,
Annie, Annie, what the fuck's her name? The chick whose last name nobody can pronounce. With trying to bang Havoc. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the nurse. That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, the nurse who was like hugely important for no reason.
Yeah.
For absolutely no fucking reason. Yeah, like all of that has more intrigue than anything coming out of Jordan White's ex-office.
Speaking of which, is her son on Krakoa? Have we seen him?
I wonder whether or not she's there. He's there. Well, she could be Cecilia Reyes's assistant, because we have one doctor and like 20 million mutants and no nurses. So good job. I'm betting your medical care.
But not to lose perspective here. But the thing is, like, it's not that what we would hope for is impossible, because as much as the X office is messed up right now, let's not forget that there was a genuine moment when House of X and Powers of X came out where people were genuinely interested in the book. They actually had a very good story, and even this environment, if you know what you're doing, you can actually have something successful going on. So it's not like it's impossible. It's just not happening on as regularly as it should. And it would just be nice to know at this point, what is the secret sauce that is going on in these two companies where they just keep shooting themselves in the proverbial penis?
What's the secret sauce? A bunch of people that don't like superheroes writing superheroes, that want to write literally anything but superheroes using superheroes. Hawks and Pox were great. It's just everything that came after that was a giant steaming pile of shit.
They went right back, guys. Right back.
We got some other stuff we got to get to. We got Lade Graber says, so what issue will Tootie Howard's Catwoman be canceled on? I don't think it will be canceled. I think that they're going to do this crisis, and you'll probably just relaunch everything.
Yep.
That's kind of the way that I'm seeing DC Comics. Obviously, we got Justice League Incarnate. We're going to have the death of Justice League to the Dark Army, who clearly works for the Great Darkness, and then there are mini-series, which should be leading up to that next crisis. So I don't think it'll be canceled. No. I think it'll just be reset. Will Tootie Howard be on it after that? I'm not really sure. We've got Derpy Hoggington. Howdy, y'all. I'm new to comics. Well, welcome. So any tips for Rebirth? Yes, read it. Definitely read it. Go in there. Go read Superman Action, Super Sons. You want to read Green Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern Corps. Aquaman was really, really dope. Titans was really good. What else? What else am I forgetting there, Drew?
Super Sons. Yeah, even Detective by James Tynion. Detective by James Tynion. That was really damn good too.
And one other piece of advice: if you're getting them in floppies, when you get to the ones that have the 2-page spread that says Bendis is coming, you're on the clock.
Get out.
Yes, please, go take an antidepressant, an anti-anxiety med. I know it's a threat, but just be careful. Just be okay with it.
And Hawkman, check out Hawkman too.
Yeah,
definitely read
Absolutely.
Hawkman. That was a fantastic run. Everything. There wasn't a whole lot bad there, and even the beginning of that Batman by Tom King was pretty okay until we get to War of Jokes and Riddles, where I didn't think it went too well. But absolutely, I hope
those cracks started showing early. I was saying those cracks started showing early in Batman.
Yeah, War of Jokes and Riddles, I believe, is the third story, right? So about issue number 9, 10.
That was like in the 30s.
It came way later. Yeah, it was in the 30s because you had I Am Batman and you had I Am Suicide, which was the second arc, and that's where I Am Suicide was where the cracks started forming, and then you had I Am Bane, and it just it started falling apart early. People just didn't want it to.
I thought the first crack was when he was riding the plane, Slim Pickens on the nuke style, and saying, Alfred, is it a good death?
That was a callback to Everybody Lives, The Flash. Or Nobody Dies.
Nobody dies. That's a great issue of The Flash. Everyone should read that.
I'm sorry. I'm really distracted by Jimmy's super chat here.
Hey, we're gonna
Oh, no.
So much innuendo.
We got another super chat to get to before we got that. We got Common Sense. If there's movies, TV games, or media on other DC heroes, the DC Comics can make comics to feed off of that. Like Peacemaker, they want to make cartoons, but no Batman.
There's supposed to be a Suicide Squad video game. I don't know if that ever.
That's been delayed till 2020.
It's been delayed.
Okay.
Yes.
There we go.
Suicide
That would help.
Great trailer.
Kill Superman or something. Kill something.
Kill the
That would've
Justice
helped.
League or something.
Kill Justice League. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
which
they are
is what they're
certainly
doing.
pushing Peacemaker. Is Peacemaker the new fucking Harley Quinn or Daredevil? Or I'm sorry,
Deadpool?
Deadpool.
He's got his shot. He's got his shot.
Yeah. Why not?
Like totally overexposed for no reason. They're gonna like wear out anything that people like about the character almost immediately.
Nothing matters, so why not?
Yeah, that's true. We got Jimmy from Comic Works. If you haven't checked out Jimmy's channel, he's doing skits and parodies now. Do not watch his. Well, you know what? Just out of morbid curiosity, go watch his best artist tier video. You'll probably like that one. But he says Bendis is coming, and he's got googly eyes, and he's appears to be drooling.
They're
So
not
He's missing the eggplant and squirt emojis too.
That's what I was gonna say.
Bree,
You know
you've
that
been-
when those first 2-page spreads came through, like he jizzed his pants so hard.
Like, yeah, full doc on that one. So, Breen, you've been working with Jimmy for years to help him out with his comic book knowledge. I blame all this on you. How did he end up with such terrible taste in comic books?
Let me quote a star. It was a Star City that Arrow was set in. I have failed this, Jimmy. No other way to put it. I blame him myself.
watching you.
Bendis did some good stuff on Ultimate Spider-Man and Avengers. So hey,
I championed Bendis since the first decade of the 2000s. It's the second one that attracted people like my young friend Jimmy here that I can't go to bat for. And there's only so much you can do. Wes, he threatened to come find me. You look how big he is.
And I'll champion his Dark Avengers run. I thought that was really good.
None of those books were Avengers, but they were good books.
Yeah.
So the Avengers. Well, most of them have been killed off at the
This
time.
Daredevil wasn't terrible either.
Those are
Daredevil was great. Honestly, I really liked. Basically, Bendis' name was on something from about 2001 through 2000 until AVX. I would buy it if his name was on it. I would buy it.
I agree.
And then he broke the X-Men, and I was like, nope. And fuck him ever since.
Well, then he did Civil War 2. That was the nail, right? Last nail in the coffin.
AVX. I think I still distinctly remember. I think it was issue 7 of AVX where they did the whole thing where there's an ancient legend of a man that can punch the Phoenix to death, and I was like, I'm done. I'm not reading this anymore.
Yeah.
What, Phoenix 5 didn't do it?
Yeah, like when Bendis AVX was my line because it was like Bendis, Jason Aaron, John Hickman, all of them shit the bed so hard on that. I lost respect for every single writer involved in that. I never really liked Jason Aaron. He got worse. I never thought Hickman was very good as a result of AVX. And Bendis, that was everything after that was just a descent into tragedy.
Well, Jimmy is talking to you here, Doc. He said, I made Doc jealous. You know you're my one and only. He's got room for you and Bendis, Doc.
Oh, well, I mean, I got a little dick. So.
Remember, what happens on Coca-Cola stays on Coca-Cola.
Oh, my goodness.
I wish
Doc is going to be the meat and the Jimmy Bendis Sammy.
Oh,
That's terrible. We got MVP Maxfield Von Priestley, another fantastic YouTuber. We're going to try and get him onto the show next weekend, I believe. Hail all.
Okay.
Sorry I can't say I'll watch the replay tomorrow. Just wanted to show my support and say thank you as always for the conversation and bits. Well, thank you very much for the support. Doing great things over there on his own channel. Definitely check him out. He's a great guy. And like I said, we'll have him back on the channel real soon. And I do want to say thank you very much to everyone for giving us a like. We're over 200 likes for this video, but we're still like over 330 live viewers. So if you haven't given us any love, give us a little thumbs up and show a little support. Still having a lot of fun here, and we got plenty of stuff to talk about still. My goodness, we're barely put a dent in what we were supposed to be doing here. All right, let's go over to Marvel. We got to get this Judgment Day. We've got the Eternals versus the Avengers versus the X-Men. I don't know. I'm personally rooting for the X-Men to lose to everybody. I want Omega Sentinel and Nimrod and the Avengers and the Eternals all to team up and take the X-Men out. I don't believe that's going to happen. What are you thinking, Drew? You're a couple of retailer. People excited for Judgment Day?
No, and I'm going to say this. So bear with me in this analogy. To me, anytime the Inhumans are involved, just the Inhumans, they are the Afghanistan comic book characters. No one has gone into the Inhumans or Afghanistan and won. It doesn't work.
It's the Eternals.
Yeah, it's the Eternals.
same difference.
Oh, same difference. Whatever. Well, actually, Paul Jenkins and Jay Lee did win. I'm sorry. Yes, the Eternals. Yes, are the Afghanistan of comic book characters. No one's gone into it and won. So they're just unwinnable, waste of resources, and just do damage to reputations. Just the Eternals should not be involved in this. It's not going to work. Sorry.
All right, Doc. I know you've been champing at the bit. You probably slobbered right now to get on this. Talk about what you want to say.
I want to see Krakoa thrown into the fucking sun.
Fair.
As well as everyone on it.
Fair.
I would like to see the Eternals somehow wiped from existence, like ever existing. Like literally pull them right out of the page, put them back onto Jack's cutting room floor.
What if they made the
should have
sacrifice,
stayed?
and in order to destroy Krakoa into the sun, they had to destroy themselves?
Good.
They could go out heroes.
Good. I'm fine with this. Fine. Look, I'm good with this. Then maybe you take the Celestial that apparently they're going, even though they've turned him into a house, apparently can still wake up. I don't know about you, but once you hollow out the heart in order to make it your like breakfast nook, I generally don't think it's going to work very well afterwards. But apparently they can. They're going to. And whenever this Celestial comes back, throw that in the sun as well. I don't care how the sun's big and it burns things up real good. So it's just more fuel. That's what we really need. And by the way, whatever happened to you know who's gonna make what would make this even better? And by better, I mean absolutely fucking terrible. The weapon Omega that came up after Civil or House of Hammer, or was it Civil War? Whichever one it was, that was apparently all of the power of the 16 million dead mutants that apparently ended up inside some guy that was in Krakoa when Krakoa was in space. That's what we need. He got to come in and just wipe the floor with everybody, and then we throw him in the sun too.
I don't know, Joe. What's wrong with Doc? Is he? Do you have emotional issues? What is it?
No, I mean, some of the like problems with some of this stuff. Well, I'll start with some positives. Valerio's a good artist. I like stuff. Kieran, I like most of his indie stuff. With Marvel, he's kind of hit or miss. I don't think his X stuff was very good. He's been away from the X-Men for a while. There's a possibility that he comes back and has a better handle on it. So I'll kind of wait and see for that. However, going back to how nothing matters, the cover with all the characters on it, they can just reuse that every year and just keep changing the name of the event. and barely update the synopsis and just keep using it over and over again until we're all dead. It's just, who cares?
A lot of heroes fighting heroes.
Yeah, constantly, all the time, and I'm so tired of it. And one of the things that I did think of when it comes to this was they should design the logo in conjunction with Axe body spray and do a promotion.
Right there, Joe. You own it, man.
Because if they can get your LCS to have samples of Axe body spray, Axe body spray, when it comes to body odor, is the lesser of two evils. And there are some places out there where it would benefit. So,
Josh, where would Axe body spray benefit you the most?
Are we talking about where on my body or where out in public?
That's what I figured. I don't know. You put it on your comics?
No. Well, maybe if the comics are as bad as they've been lately, I might be like, no, make it better.
It covers up that
here's a real question.
I feel like
Josh. I got a real question for you. We do have a little bit of a delay on Josh's audio, but Common Sense wants to know, what are your thoughts on Jason Aaron's Weird World?
What?
No.
Fuck if I know.
You have no thoughts? All right, Joe. What are your thoughts on
I couldn't tell you anything about Weird World.
I thought that was Nick Spencer.
This is Jason Aaron's Weird World. What do you think, Joe? You read everything.
What? I read a lot of stuff, but what the hell are we talking about?
I mean, that's like from 10 years ago. It's like after Secret Wars.
God,
that Weird World.
Like that, Mad Men meme. I don't think about it at all.
Came out.
Sounds like people are trying to forget it. Common Sense. Thank you so much for the channel. We got Federico de la Casa with a channel called Thinking Critical. Has the main man says, bring on the Omega Sentinels, destroy Krakoa, Speaks Volumes. Bolivar Trask was right.
Nimrod is right.
I thought the Omega Sentinels destroying me at this point.
Hey, absolutely. Destroy the comics. Get rid of it. Comic Quirks. Jimmy says Doc's head better equals absolutely effing terrible. Does he mean that, like, whenever you say you want something better, you want something bad, or when something's better, you think it's terrible? Is what he's thinking? He's saying you got bad taste, Doc.
I don't know. I thought he was talking about my ability to give head.
Wow.
I was really confused.
Oh my God.
I don't know. All I'm saying, Doc, is a guy that said Brian Michael Bendis, Jason Aaron were two of the 10 best comic writers in the history of the world, said you don't have good taste in comics.
Jimmy, I love you, sir, but you have
have
the worst taste in comics in human history.
Claremont
I know.
Was under slot.
I know. He has got the worst taste in comics in human history. He's like that weatherman on the television that tells you it's going to be raining, so you definitely don't take an umbrella. Because you just do the opposite of what Jimmy says. Read the books that Jimmy says to not read.
Man, I want to pay for you two guys to have a slap fight. Man, I'd pay $5 for that right on here on the internet. Is Jimmy and Doc
that fight is great.
Each other. We got Wolfskin 3D. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. This sounds like the lame WWE, NWO, and WWE ECW invade that WWE. Can't wait to not read it. Oh, man, that was the worst wrestling angle ever, Gervain. They finally did the WCW invasion with ECW. And was a ball ever dropped so spectacularly?
No, this is a C-list Central, man. That's what that was then with Invasion, and that's what this is now. It's like the X-Men are gods now, and it's like, look, War of Kings was better, okay? That's all I get. War of Kings was better. It made more sense. It set up a great new status quo. Of course, they did nothing with it, but it's like, they got me on Empire. They ain't get me on this one. That's all
they got you on Empire. You got like $12 out of you before you realized it was bad, didn't you?
Damn straight.
That's because if people
got
don't remember, Marvel and DC have been shut down for like 6 weeks, and they finally came out. And
Oh man,
Gervais was just champing at the bit to give his money away. He's like, "Here."
oh, they got me for $24, man, because I picked up Incoming. Come on, I still haven't had the heart to walk into my comic store and rip it up in front of them. But they got me on Incoming. I was already over before it started. It was done before I started.
Oh man, that's a rough story, Gervais. You shouldn't have had that happen to you, man. You're better than that. Yeah. I think everyone's not happy about Judgment. We'll see what happens there. It could be all right. Kieran Gillen, don't listen to Doc. Kieran Gillen is a perfectly fine writer, and when he's on, he's a really good writer. Valerio Shitty should be fine. We've got Fantastic Four Reckoning War begins this week. I read it, Joe. This wasn't the worst thing in the history of the world. It was perfectly average.
It's a fine comic about a thing no one cares about.
That's the issue, right?
A thing or the thing.
It was like,
no, it's. I mean, this is all an event that's. I feel like, this is one of those things where they're like, all right, Dan, you paid your dues. There are multiple comics in your portfolio that sold really well. You get to do your thing no one cares about but you. And he's doing it, and we're all just gonna have to sit back and take it.
Nobody's going to read it, but it just feels like the same thing. It's like there's this cosmic entity, and they're bigger and badder than every other cosmic entity ever. In fact, they're badder than the Katati. They're badder than the Kree, the Skrull, and they're going to come for Earth. What do you think would happen?
Yeah.
Like,
and they just
I
look
bet
like
the
random
Avengers
orcs.
and the Fantastic Four and the X-Men beat them like you did the last 20 times you told that story.
I just want to know what issue they're gonna break the source wall and we're gonna see Perpetua.
The source wall has made it.
Because that's what this is.
But you're not off with that, Josh.
I'm wondering, did Dan Slott recently get into Warhammer? Because these are just fucking orcs with guns.
Yeah, and
That's
also
all it is.
Watchers don't need heralds. That's stupid.
It was stupid, wasn't it? Thank you.
He's a watcher.
In
He
fact,
doesn't need some guy to look at things for him. He watches all.
And additionally, the Watcher's designed to not be seen. So him announcing his arrival was kind of
weird,
like, counterproductive.
Kind of the sign of the
end. Every story going back to the dawn of the Watchers and those characters, not to disparage them, they're fun stories, but going back to the early use with Stan and Jack and Fantastic Four of the Watcher, every time he shows up, he's always like, we're not allowed to interfere except this time. Yeah. So it's like using that as like a way to be like, it's like, this is the 37,000th time you have been like, the Watchers never, ever interfere, except now, again, because
that gun I put right there for you, if you want to pick it up.
No, that's the best. That was the best in, what was that, Fantastic Four Annual #3 for the wedding, where the Watchers just like, hey, Reed, fancy seeing you here. Oh, that's a gun. You can take that. I'm not looking. I'm not interfering.
Yeah, here, ultimate nullifier. Why not?
Well, the best part of that gun is it helped Professor X stand up during the wedding. So that was fun.
And how does he pay Reed back all those years later?
Yeah.
My goodness, they stole his memory
by
and
mind
made
raping him.
Yeah, that was a terrible moment. I got sick to my stomach when I read that. That was a good job by Chip Zdarsky. I was like, oh, that's rough. Yeah. What do you think about this one, Drew? Obviously, you guys do reviews of all these. I was shocked at how good it was. Not that it's great, but that it wasn't bad.
I mean, compared to what we've gotten from Dan, I actually really enjoyed this. I thought it was fun. And for me, the best part was Carlos Magno's art. Right there toward the latter half of the comic. I love Carlos Magno, and I'm really hoping we get to see more of him. It was I'm a big fan of the original Nick Fury. It's great. It's just for me, it's fun seeing him back again, even though it's not the best of situations, not the best of roles. He's back. But yeah, it's a fun read. You could do a hell of a lot worse. I'll say that.
What you guys think about them resurrecting the Watcher so they could kill him like 2 minutes later?
Yeah. Sounds about par for the course for modern Marvel.
Could you guys killed somebody else? I don't know. He's already dead. You just resurrected him to kill him again?
Nah,
How
they're
dead
not.
can the guy be?
He's going to be not dead again.
No.
Well, probably. We had Nick Fury like sitting on a piece of moon debris
with just hanging out in space. Like, you know,
it's no big deal.
I love the fact that you blow up the fucking moon in this event, and it's never going to get referenced by a single other book in that line.
Well, it should change all the time, everything. That would have huge impacts on the world.
Oh yeah, no. And then I'm sure in like a few months, someone's going to be like on the moon in a comic because who cares?
Well,
they're
that's
going to be
where
on the
X-Men
moon
live,
next,
right?
Yeah, the X-Men fucking live there. They have a house.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a guy that lives on the blue side of the moon.
We'll be on the moon. Jeez.
But
man, Doc, this is a great question for you. We got Common Sense. Doc, do you like Kieran Gillen's Die comic?
I never read it. I once. Look, I'll be perfectly honest. I've only read a handful of things by Kieran Gillen. Everything I've read, I've been very disappointed in. So I learned, you know, I am not an Alzheimer's patient. I did not suffer repeated head trauma. So I learned my lessons to not buy shit writers writing. Same reason
Kieran
I don't
Gillen's
buy.
Die is actually really good for about 8 issues.
Okay, I'll take your word for that.
It reminded me of Jumanji. That's the problem for me. It just reminded me too much of the Jumanji. I'll just watch that or
it was supposed to
read
be
the
Dungeons
original
and
book.
Dragons, but I get what you're saying. The artist on it was really good. It's this French lady. I can't remember her name right now.
yeah, I had dinner with her and Kieran a couple of New York Comic Cons ago. It was very nice.
She was here at C2E2 back in December. Yeah, she's great.
Random
Drew's
lady
right.
that I don't remember.
Stephanie Hans. Stephanie Hans. That's her name.
I was
Stephanie
gonna
Hans,
say,
there you go.
Yeah.
she's so
Fantastic
great,
artist.
I can't even remember her name.
There's a lot of fucking comic book artists, Doc. I don't
That's a
remember all
good
their names
point.
sometimes. I do more than cover just Marvel, X-Men like you. I gotta do indies. I gotta do DC. I gotta do Marvel. I gotta do all the retrospectives. I got a lot of names up here. I forget a lot of shit.
That's true. Well, I'm
But
betting. You know what? The Summers house was protected by, you know, a magical mutant 3-way. It created a force field around them.
Perhaps. There's got to be a mutant whose abilities is force fields. But now, if you want to go check out Die, I liked it up until the part where they started exploring the characters in depth, and you kind of find out that they're all pieces of shit outside the game. And I was like,
Yeah,
I don't
really,
care
yeah,
if
they
any of
are.
these guys make it.
No, and Drew was right. Gillian did describe his own book as Goth Jumanji, so he went off about that one. So
Yeah, well, I'll still never.
take
I'll
that what
still-
you will.
I will still
Take that
never.
what you will.
I will never forgive him for what he did to Mr. Sinister. So fuck him. He's in no
You're gonna get
talent
more
as a
Mr.
clown, too.
Sinister, apparently, on that
He said,
Immortal
"Hey,
X-Men.
look, I don't forgive Grant Morrison for what he did to Wildstorm, and I don't forgive Kieran Gillen for what he did to Sinister. So fuck both of them."
Well, Grant Morrison wrote a Superman.
And he ruined my
it,
second
All-Star
favorite comic
Superman?
universe. He effectively murdered my second favorite comic universe. So fuck
Kieran
him.
Gillen wrote maybe the best Darth Vader comic of all time. Maybe the best villain in the history. Of,
I give
I
zero
enjoyed
shits
that.
about
because
Star
you're not a
Wars.
real nerd, Doc. You don't even like Star Wars.
I don't care about Star Wars. I like 3 movies. And that's
All
it.
right, we talked about Fantastic Four Wrecking War enough. We're run out of time, but that was actually a really good comic book. I mean, not really good.
Yeah.
It was a good comic
It was
book. Definitely
solid.
worth your time.
Solid.
Eminently mediocre.
It's perfectly fine. We actually reviewed it for Worst of the Week, and we were both like, "Huh, this isn't as bad as it was supposed to be." Whoops.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it anyway. Next up, we have a vast array of creators suing Action Labs. We know they've been in the media. Well, there's been a few reports on them not paying out, holding on to people's creations, even though they haven't been publishing them and stuff like this. Obviously, I'm going to throw it to you first, Joe, since you are an independent comic creator. What are your thoughts on this? This seems like really, really, really dirty.
Yeah, I mean, I've known about Action Lab more or less since their inception. You know, they were one of the early publishers I was talking to. I never did anything with them. It wasn't for lack of trying. It was all very weird. You know, they'd be like sitting on emails forever, getting back to you, telling you they want something like, oh, maybe a pitch like this, and you send it over, and then they're like, that's not really what we're looking for. And it's like, you asked me to send you a story like this. Like that. There'd be a lot of stuff like that. I remember some of their early stuff. There was actually this like one like horror one shot with this like cabin in the woods kind of thing. I'm blanking on the name. I have it somewhere. It's like maybe like a decade ago. And I actually liked that. And I remember early on picking up Action Lab stuff, maybe 2011, 2012. And the way it was printed was so amateur that I picked it up at a Midtown Comics, some of this stuff. And the barcodes wouldn't scan. And they had to put it in manually because they printed it so like pixelated that the barcode wouldn't come up, like that kind of stuff. So, you know, top tier. But I've heard stuff about them for a long time. I know some people like, you know, David Pepos was just announced on Savage Avengers coming up in May. He did Spencer and Locke through them.
That's a good series.
It was really good. And, you know, similar kind of, you know, I don't want to, you know, talk on, you know, David's behalf, but, you know, a lot of these creators, and this is common for most small publishers. Almost every small publisher goes like, oh yeah, we're going to give you a quarterly sales reports. And so they never do that. So, I mean, there's a lot of the stuff I read was very par for the course. However, it sounds like, based on everything, that they would then like double down and be like, no, we're absolutely going to do that. And would still never do it. Not showing sales or counting sales from conventions is really bad because they do that. They were at a lot of conventions. Mm-hmm. I would see them at conventions all the time, and they'd have a decent sized booth and they would sell stuff there. And, you know, they'd have creators who would have to table at the booth. So these creators were basically buying their own table, trying to sell stuff that Action Lab was selling. It's a whole like kind of mess of a situation. And I see where those problems are. Briefly, there was a point where I think Jamal Eigel and Vito Del Centi were both working there. Jamal's Molly Danger was coming out there, then it like stopped coming out. I think they both kind of quietly left the company in the last couple of years. It's been a whole sort of crazy situation like that, but I've known and heard for a long time, don't even bother working with them. So, and I mean, going back probably like 3 or so years, stories of different people being like, yeah, they've owed me, you know, 4, maybe even 5 figures for, you know, 6 months, a year, 2 years. And it took threatening legal action before, you know, or getting a lawyer to email them on their behalf before they would pay out, things like that. So there were a lot of issues. I'm almost surprised it took this long for it to get to this point, but I'm happy to see that. The important thing is I hope that people involved get their IP back.
Yes.
You know, because that's the tricky thing with small publishers as well, because you might technically own the copyright, but when you sign off, you're licensing that to that publisher and giving them like exclusive rights to print for X amount of years. Some of these contracts do it in a way where it's basically like in perpetuity. So Action Lab basically was holding a lot of IPs hostage, more or less. So I hope this kind of resolves that, and that people are able to, you know, either crowdfund or take it to, you know, Scout Comics or another small publisher to get their comics out.
Yeah, I remember not that long ago they decided not to print and publish a comic book. They just put it out on digital. They never told the creator that it was even released. They're like, what are you talking about? We published your book. He's like, when did you do that? I'm like, yeah, we released it, you know, a month and a half ago. We just never told you.
Yeah.
Also, I could never go out there and tell anybody that was interested in it that they should go read it. It's just
Yeah.
really.
Why would you do
bad
that?
stuff.
It's crazy talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
The only thing I
it's awesome.
personally have ever read at Action Labs was Ram V's A Brigand's Tale, then Ruin of Thieves, the sequel to that one, which is actually really good. But yeah, it's too bad that all this happened.
No, for sure. David Papos is going to the chapel was through Action Lab too, and it's was it Gavin Geardry? I want to say was the artist on that, and he was good. That's worth checking out too. David's stuff there.
And what do you think about this, Jermaine? Obviously, you are starting up your own small publisher.
Yeah, it's called pay people. That's what it's like. It ain't hard. It's like, I'm not sitting here telling somebody, I've spoken with a few people who have worked with them, and when they told me, well, yeah, I get paid 2 months after the book gets published. Like, what do you get paid 2 months after the book? It's like, yeah, after it comes out. It's like, dude, sometimes when I was, as you're working to get animated concepts up and you're trying to figure out how to make it work, and there's a little thing called cash flow, and you're looking at these guys putting out these books, you say, well, a lot of people, their parents will be dying and leaving them a lot of money to be able to get the output that they get. And then it turns out when you're looking at Action Labs and probably the way some other publishers operate, oh yeah, they're able to get that kind of publishing output because they're not paying anybody. It's like, this is ridiculous. It's I said it the last time this came up, and I'll say it again. It's like, everybody involved. Publishers don't offer contracts you don't want to honor. Creators don't sign contracts that make you basically go, ew. It's like, because Joe is right. When someone ties up the IP rights to the degree that apparently or allegedly Action Lab has tied it up to, it's like it does become a hostage situation. And that's what it was at one point, according to when it first broke, that some of the creators, they were saying, well, look, you can get all of it back. Just pay me for whatever I laid out for all these books that are sitting in the warehouse someplace.
We got 30,000.
Yeah, I got inventory.
You pay me the 30,000, you can have it.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like, dude, but you never put it out there, promoted it, or distributed it in the first place. It is just like, this is really Action Labs is a cautionary tale. And I say it's more a cautionary tale for creators. And I'll say this: stop selling yourselves short. Stop selling yourselves cheap. I've said it to talent before, and I'll say it again. I said, talent, a creator can always do what a publisher does any day of the week. A publisher can't necessarily do what talent does. And what that means is that, guys, you're just going to have to, we're getting to a day and age now. And I know a lot of people don't like NFTs, but it's really going to help out with the digital end of a lot of this stuff as we go into what's now called Web3, the next iteration of the internet. You're going to have to learn about things that you don't necessarily care or want to learn about if you want to be successful doing this. Yeah. Because there's no reason at this point to hand all of this power over to publishers. There just isn't. We spent the first hour or so talking about Marvel and DC. Those guys with all that backing and all the scale and all the brand recognition that they have, and they barely can be bothered to take the industry to the next level. So this is all coming down now to basically independent publishers and independent creators somehow with a hope and a dream doing the right thing in the industry. And it's going to start with, these guys have to write better. We have to start coming up with better contracts and better agreements that actually incentivize creators to want to put their best foot forward and then some. And that means publishers, stop trying to get over on people. If you ain't got the money if you don't have the money to see the project all the way through, don't solicit, don't publish, and don't make promises you can't keep.
And creators, don't sign contracts written by LegalZoom.
There you go. That's right.
Yep.
Right,
or read them and comprehend them and understand what you're signing. Yeah.
Let's get on this last topic. I've heard this one a little bit. We talked about the Iron Man is going to propose to Hellcat, and a lot of people have been comparing Chris Cantwell to Tom King and what he has done at DC Comics. Obviously, Josh, you are the DC aficionado here. You read a lot of Tom King Batman. Do you see Chris Cantwell as maybe the Tom King of Marvel Comics now?
I mean, Tom King has actually written some good stuff. I'm just going to leave it at that. Like, I can actually pick up some Tom King books and say, hey, this was good. Ignore this other shit. I can't pick up a single Chris Cantwell thing that I know of and be like, yo, this was good. Maybe. I think the similarities is coming because he's doing similar plot lines. Everything's been there, done that. I'm so apathetic to what the big two is doing right now that I don't. I keep saying this, but I don't care. I don't care.
Yeah, is that what it is?
And that's the
You
worst
don't think
place
it's
to be. I
nice
would much
that
rather
Doc
hated
has to
some-
deal with this now too?
What's this about me?
Don't you think it's nice that DC or Marvel fans like Doc have to deal with what Tom King's been doing at DC now too? Port it over to Marvel.
Yeah. Look, we all saw that. Anybody that watched *Halt and Catch Fire* saw this coming. So,
Yep, that
No one
last
watched
season
it, Doc.
terrible.
no, a lot of people did. It was
Yeah.
a very successful show for AMC. But yeah, anybody that watched it saw this fucking coming. No, it's terrible, and I laugh at it. At this point, look, fuck it. Who cares? Nothing matters. Nothing matters. Just he's just look. I already read. This is like me sitting there as Marty McFly in 1955, going, "Oh, I saw this episode." We all fucking saw this already. We know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Plus the fact that Iron Man's going to still end up marrying Emma.
Well, Hellcat's probably going to stand him up at the altar. He's probably going to try to kill himself by ODing on alcohol or morphine, and
And then
It was going to be Obadiah Stane all along, Joe.
and he's going to end up marrying Emma as a result for some weird fucking reason.
But it won't matter because by issue, 24, 25, they'll go back to number 1 and they'll put a new writer on it. And that new writer is going to have a whole first issue dedicated to how Tony's been stuck in a rut and he needs to change his ways. And maybe he needs to leave the company again and, sober up again and has to learn a valuable lesson that money and fame can't buy happiness. And maybe he needs to settle down with a nice lady and give back more to the community. And then that'll go for 18 issues. And then another writer will come in for 12 issues to write a story about how Tony Stark needs to get back to basics. And
Will he start dating Jean Grey because he's running out of redheads?
he is running out of redheads.
No, he's supposed to end up marrying Emma. They already foreshadowed that.
Mark Waid did that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Iron
know what
Man
do you think,
25 is
Green?
going to be $10.
But it feels like to me, it's time to give Tony
Yeah.
Stark his alcohol problem back and let him step up in life. Have something good happen to him.
I want Teen Tony to come back and kill him.
Oh, Lord Jesus.
Yeah, when Iron Man was gotten to the point where you're actually rooting for the return of Iron Diapers, something is wrong.
Yeah, right.
Now, this whole series, at some point you realize you've been doing something too long. It's those of us who were actually old enough to have remembered when the Avengers came out, when Patsy became Hellcat, and how starstruck she was, how deferential she was to Tony and Steve because it was their idea to let her have the suit. And then, all the things they did with the character after that, say nothing of the fact that she was a teen romance character going back to the 40s.
No.
You realize that this isn't that character. And that's the problem. None of these characters, but again, I guess this is okay if your Marvel began in 2012. But if you've been reading for decades, it's just everything about this is just stupid. I mean, it's
not even the Kate Leth Hellcat.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, it's close.
Who cares? It's like
It's still pretty close to the Kate Leth Hellcat. She still just needs to berate men, which is all that Kate Leth's Hellcat was too.
Doc and I used to have sunny dispositions.
Yeah, I used to
Thank
be
you,
a
Marvel.
very, very happy person.
Well, Breen does say that he waits for our Monday worst of the week video so he can get his smile on.
You are just a ray of sunshine.
I don't know what are you thinking, Drew. Tony Stark Iron Man has never been an A-list character from Marvel Comics. I guess if they're going to destroy one of their bigger names, I guess Tony's just as good as Captain America, although Cantwell destroyed him too.
Yeah, and just wondering who's going to be next. Who's going to be Thor? It's going to be next.
It's going to be Obi-Wan. They just announced that.
One, oh God, no. Let's just see. Yeah, it's going to be that meme of like the Grim Reaper going down each door to see who's next. I hate seeing this, you know, and it really what he's doing with Iron Man is just what Tom King did with Batman, and it's just I don't. It's just character assassination at this point. It really is, and I hate seeing this happen. This shit needs to stop. And it just they're reflecting probably their own depression and anxieties on these characters, and it really shows. And it's pretty sad.
Well, we do have one final super chat. Then we'll call this a day. I got a couple things I need to get to. We got Federico De La Casa. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Hellcat marrying Tony after saying a white rich cis male. Who married Damon Hellstorm and was killed by him, but Tony was the problem. Yeah, I don't get it. She's just always put him in check.
Campbell doesn't know that, and that never happened in this Marvel. Another problem.
What do you mean this Marvel? This is two Marvels?
If you ask me, I said Marvel's gravestone has 1961 to 2012 on it.
Yep. AVX was the death of Marvel. Because right after that, you got Marvel Now. Everything since Marvel Now has been a train wreck. And it's been a progressive train wreck. It gets worse every time they try to fix it.
And I really think Hellcat's not going to marry him. Hellcat's going to stand him up at the altar. I guarantee it. Going to replay the Batman playbook.
That'd be the best thing to do for Tony. Be the best thing for the character. Oh my goodness, everything's going wrong. We got common sense. How's Chris Cantwell treating Korvac? Gina Drake is a redhead, but she's a teenager, possibly the singularity. How's you treating Korvac?
None of that space stuff's been good. None of it's been good.
You know that Korvac is, that's Breen's favorite story, right? Korvac saga?
Yeah, this didn't happen either.
You not Jeez.
It's all just being in space and being addicted to morphine.
This is all fucking some idiot slash fic on AO3. That's all that Marvel is post 2012.
Well, those are happy thoughts, Doc. I want to say thank you very much to everybody. Let's get into some comic book recommendations. What should people be reading? Let's start over Breed first. I know you're not going to say anything new, are you?
Come back to me.
What?
Come back to me. Let me think of something.
My goodness. All right, Josh, we're throwing it to you. What do you recommend this week?
I mean, if I'm gonna recommend a Batman title, I guess Batman 120. It's solid, got beautiful art. There's some problems with the story, but it's still good. Other than that, I thought Daredevil Woman Without Fear was decent. I don't really know what else to say. So
it was all right. It wasn't a great week for comic books.
It wasn't. I didn't read anything like, yeah, that was good. Yeah.
It was a tough week getting my best comics of the week lined up. Doc, what are you recommending this week?
I'm recommending X-Men Legends number 11. I'm recommending The Magic Order 2 number 4. And I am recommending ASM 88.
Very good. Man, you were like really to the point. I like that, Doc. What do you recommend, Joe?
Alien 9 was fine. It's good enough.
Comic.
Yeah, it's an alien comic. It's predictable. It's predictable, but there were a few good moments where an alien murdered people, and there was a robot that got its head bashed in, and then was all gooey and gross. So that was fun. And you know what? Excellent number 1. I was a big fan of Ecstatics, and in terms of these sort of like nostalgia bait kind of comics, it felt a lot like it was a continuation of that still. So that worked for me. So yeah, those two.
Yeah, that's not the greatest comic book. We got Jordan Fugate, also known as Jordan Fugate. I'm still upset that I bought 3 variant copy or covers of the Batman wedding issue.
Only 3?
I bought. You know what? I bought the Josh Middleton variant set, and I'm still disappointed that I bought it. Even though it's a beautiful cover, but it's a useless fucking book.
It's a stinker.
Yep.
Yeah, they screwed a lot of people over on that one. That one can't all be blamed on Tom King, though. I think that had a lot to do with the editorial and executives. They could have handled that one better. We got Common Sense. I recommend the Book of Gogher, the sequel of Ken Gehringer's Gogher from Image Comics. The sequel is on pre-launch on Kickstarter. Please help him finish what he started and share this. Absolutely. If you're interested in that, definitely go to Kickstarter and check it out. What do you think about that recommendation, Joe?
Yeah, no, definitely people should be checking out the different offerings on, all sorts of crowdfunding platforms. I've been backing stuff. I forget what I back sometimes because, I'll just see stuff or I'll know stuff I want. Like I'm still waiting for my absolute John Sable Volume 1.
I just got the backer kit thing for the Top Cow Cyberforce.
How is that?
Collected edition. I don't know. I haven't seen the book yet.
Oh,
I'm loving it, but the campaign's over. They just sent out the backer kit stuff for shipping and everything. But I bought that because I'm definitely down for that.
Nice.
Very nice.
And I got the Brett Booth Artifacts edition, that huge oversized, it's like an artist edition that a bunch of Wildstorm people over on Facebook apparently got with Brett and put together. It's basically like an artist edition, like the IDW artist edition, same sizing, fucking huge. Nice. Gorgeous though.
Very nice. And obviously Tim Lim and Mark Pellegrini have their latest volume of Common America up on Kickstarter as well. So definitely a lot of good comic books that you should be going and checking out. And thank you very much to Common Sense for bringing that one up and supporting the channel. Who else hasn't recommended any comics? Eric Breed, have you recommended any comics?
All right. First, Evil Black Cat, Eat Hot Death. You know why I said that. I'm going to go with King of Spies. The issue 3 comes out this week. Ash recommended that on Twitter, and
good.
I thought I'd give it a shot,
really
and was stunned at how good it is.
It's old man James Bond
fan, but
James Bond with terminal cancer taking out all the people that he was told that he wasn't able to take out during his career. Fuck yes. And his illegitimate bastard son coming after him.
Jesus, Doc, how many fucking spoilers are you giving here, man?
None if you read them.
Save me $5.
We got to preview it back in October. His wife sent us the previews for 1 and 2, and nice. I loved it. We all loved it, and it was a shame we couldn't talk about it. But yeah, it's been a great year.
So good. Are you done, Breed? You got more?
I start and I bring in the closer. Doc, finishes for me.
Just spoils the whole book.
It's the Mariano Rivera of my reviews.
Jeez, all right. Who else we got? We had Gervais. What do you recommend this week? Anything for $4?
I've got there's a bunch for $4. Get out of that DC Marvel thing, man. Basilisk number 7, Nocterra number 7, Star Trek Mirror War number 4,
yes,
X-Men Legends number 11, and the Marvels number 8. That's how they got me this week.
Man, I'm watching Star Trek: The Next Generation on Netflix with my kids right now. They're mad at me.
Oh, come on over there. Come on over to Mirror War, man. You got old man Picard. He don't take no prisoners. He ain't making no jokes.
Is it better than Star Trek Picard?
Yes.
I haven't watched Star Trek Picard. Yeah, I haven't watched that.
My boy Gavin Smith doing the art. It's amazing. Love it.
Yep.
Yeah, no, Gavin's great.
All right. I think we got Drew. Are you the last one left? What do you recommend?
Well, I talked about it earlier. The proof that he can write good stories. Dark Avengers by Brian Michael Bendis. When the bad guys take control, it is a lot of fun. Very well drawn. Mike Diodato on interiors. You'll love it.
That was before he started just tracing photographs too. So
yeah, absolutely. So if you want to hear my recommendations, you'll have to see the video with Drew and myself tomorrow on the channel. We got a few comics to recommend out there. We talked about some of them here, but I had a great time. I want to say thank you very much to all the panelists. Had a lot of fun today. And thank you all to everyone for supporting the channel and for sticking with us. And give us a like on the way out if you haven't already. And we'll see you next weekend.
And like the smash button.